Hello, and welcome to another episode of Thrive Like a Parent podcast. Today, Carter and I are both here, and we are going to talk about parenting because we talk about it so often, and it has become a huge part of the business.
Life, business.
It's
everything. We are parents, so it is what we do.
Yeah. So I think to give you a backstory, if you did not know, I started in pediatrics, and I did that for an extremely long time. I started at Children's Hospital in New Orleans, and then I felt like the healthcare system was not working, and I was seeing clients back to back to back every 30 minutes, still handwritten notes. It wasn't electronic back then. Yes, that really feels like it ages me, but that's where we were at. And I literally maybe worked there a year and I was like, this system is broken. And I stepped away as a very, very young clinician and opened my own practice with a business partner. And we did medical daycares, we did school system, we did home health, we did, by the time I left, we had a 3,000 square foot facility that we were seeing clients. We did handwriting, you name it, picky eating, we did it. And I left when Jonathan was offered a job here in Texas, and I sold that business because I felt even me opening up my own practice, things still weren't going the way that I wanted them to go in terms of treatment for children. And so the reason that I have built this business and the reason that I've built exactly what I do came out of the foundation of children, came out of the foundation of longing to support children. And I believe that it starts with us, which is the parents and adults. And that is why I now work with parents. However, Carter and I have talked for many years because Carter also sees clients. And we've discussed what it would be like to bring children back into the practice and bring children back into the practice as our clients. And I would say that it's a huge mix of working with the child, but also really working with the parent to help them support their child in the way that we need. We will dive deep into what these types of children look like that we are getting as clients. But I think the real topic we want to talk about today is what parenting should look like and how parenting has evolved from when you and I were growing up versus how we are raising our children now. And Carter has done an extensive amount of research and training. He trained with a forensic psychologist who solely works with pediatrics and kids. And he and I did months-long stint of learning his techniques to make sure that we were at the forefront of where we want to be when supporting our clients.
I think just a little addition to that backstory with where I'm coming from is men's work is something I've always been passionate about. It's where my coaching business started. And the more men that I have seen, the more I always see that a lot of their issues stem from childhood. I mean, it is just, it's tried and true. It's proven. It goes back. Some of these guys I work with are going back to like age 5, and we're starting to dissect what happened between 5 and 10. And then we're moving up into the teens and then young adulthood. And then now men in their 40s that I work with, we're unpacking decades of data and figuring out where things shifted in their lives. I've always had a passion for kids, whether it be coaching sports or working with special needs children and young adults. That's something that I have. I have a brother with special needs, so I have lifelong experience in regards to that. But I did a lot of volunteer work and a lot of camps, a lot of Special Olympics activities for probably about a good 15 years through college into early adulthood until I became a father. So to be able to take the men's work side of it and almost work it backwards with the goal of helping these kids be able to regulate themselves, be able to manage these emotions, and then find healthy ways for them to express them. Our kids are going to have meltdowns. They're going to have outbursts. We're not going to make perfect little tiny humans just by putting into place some of these methods and tools. But the overall goal for me is, let's see if we can reduce some of that childhood trauma that makes it into adulthood. If we put the time and work in with our children now, I feel that they're going to have a stronger future. They're going to have a better shot at coming out a well-rounded young adult, and then going into adulthood, taking what they've learned in the home in a healthy way and really helping them be the best adult version of themselves they can be.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the pattern that Carter and I always talk about is that there are so many adults that we work with who have childhood trauma or emotional neglect, if you will. All of our stories of our family dynamics are different and how we grow up. And those absolutely play a role in how we show up as adults, because if you were in a home that was be seen, not heard, you have built that pattern within your brain for decades. And you may not feel the worthiness to speak up. You may not feel that you can show your true self. You may not feel that you can own who you are if those things and those values or the patterns, honestly, of how to behave or just be as a human, if those weren't patterned as a young child. And so that is a lot of times why I talk about this with all of our clients, is because when we see someone, we know that the behaviors that they're having now are from decades and decades and decades of behaving that way, right? And so we feel like if we can help step in and support the child brain, right? And don't get me wrong, when we work with parents, we believe that it has to be a whole family system. And so we help you with everything that's going on with your child. But specifically on the parenting front, what has really happened is a lot of us were shut down as children, and there was a lot more obedience. There was a lot more authoritative parenting.
Disciplinarian, maybe.
Yeah.
I would say disciplinarian.
More rigid.
I don't know.
It depends.
Some of us were just built different.
Yeah.
I know I use that phrase a lot, but I think there were benefits to being raised a certain way in certain times, like generation I grew up in. There's a lot of things that I learned that I really hated the experience at the time, but I feel that I've come out a stronger individual from it. Mm. Some people don't have that same experience because it was never done from a position of, yes, you did this wrong. This is going to be a teaching moment. It was, you did this wrong. I'm pissed. I'm gonna go get my belt. Mm.
And no other conversation was had.
That's it. Like you're just getting beat.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a fine line between, I think, physical discipline and physical abuse. And, the generation that you and I are from, you're right. There were parents that grew up in that authoritarian style or disciplinarian style where there wasn't really a conversation before or after the punishment. It was just, here's the punishment. Good luck. Like, figure it out.
Right.
Why it's happening with no explanation.
Right. And now what Carter and I are seeing, and we are actually seeing it as we have a lot of opinions on this, but it's at the detriment of the child. But what's happened is this conscious parenting, this gentle parenting, this wave of, yes, we want our children to verbalize, feel, and explore their emotions, which wasn't that, like we just talked about, it wasn't done when we were kids. But what's happened is the pendulum has swung in such the other direction, plus the trauma that you are coming to the table with from not having the experience of being seen and heard as a child. What we're seeing is I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, passive parenting. I don't think it's intentional though.
Here's the thing. Well, our opinion is there are similarities. Mine may be a little bit more blunt
but it's not intentional.
There is, with the gentle parenting movement, I think you have two things happening. I think you have parents that don't want to be the bad guy. They still want to be the friends with their kids. They don't want to discipline them because the fear their child will dislike them if they
the fear of the disconnect.
If they take the role of actually doing their job as parents. And then you have the gentle parenting side of this that's like, well, let little Johnny just kind of be little Johnny with no boundaries, no discipline, no explanation as to why even something may not be safe. Like the issue of teaching kids right from wrong and safety has even gone out the window with this gentle parenting. Then you get a child that's just completely running amok, out of control, and people are going, well, how did we get here? Like how the parents are sitting there trying to figure out, why does your kid sit over there and eat a meal and actually use their silverware, and mine runs around the table and eats with his hands or her hands, you know? Well, you got to put the work in. And the approach of just kind of hands-off, gentle parenting, I think, has come at a cost to some of these kids' emotional development.
Yes. And I would say that I would like to make the differentiation that gentle parenting and conscious parenting, that to me is not lazy. That is a specific theory or method that individuals have taken to and believe, and that's, you know, the fad, if you will, at the moment of we are supposed to allow our children to be who they are, feel their feelings, and explore and really step into their most authentic self. I think there's a level of passive parenting where we are allowing our devices to raise our children. We sometimes believe that, well, of course they're going to get it. Like, brush your teeth. Like, okay, they're going to figure that out. Or go take a shower. Okay, they're going to like figure out where to wash and this and that. Like,
maybe
things just, I think that some believe, well, like, duh, like, of course you're going to know what that is. But I think the big wake up call is we are teachers. Like, parenting requires us to teach our children skills and tools and how to exist within this world. I think that the passive parenting is a topic of, I would say, I get heated and frustrated because there's no judgment if you're using these devices, and everyone, sure, like we go on road trips and that's when my kids get them, or we go on a plane and that's when my kids get them, but my children aren't sitting on them every afternoon and playing Roblox. Like, that's just not how I choose to parent. I think that iPads have become somewhat a babysitter at times. It's really hard to sit and go to a restaurant and see an entire table with screens in their faces. Again, this is no judgment to you. I have been in a place where the iPads did serve as a sitter for me because I was grieving and I had nothing else I could do but just survive through the day. And so I think that was a moment in time for me. And after I moved out of that, I put the iPads away. But I think Carter and I have seen children who are absolutely, there's somewhat of a disconnect from reality because we have used these devices so much. And if you're taking this very personally, that's not why we're talking about this, but it's important to understand that there's a different way to parent. And I would say that it's a blend of sensory and emotional regulation, which is a lot of feeling your feelings and owning and allowing the child to feel their feelings, but also knowing that it's okay to set boundaries and it's okay to hold your child accountable and remain in the driver's seat, as I like to call it, when you're a parent. And I personally believe that parents are scared. Like, they are scared to invoke that boundary or toe the line or step into the driver's seat because of that disconnect that they fear they will have with their child, or they will cause more generational trauma, or they will feel disconnected from their child emotionally.
Yeah, I'd say even if you're taking this personally, it's probably sparking some thought. Mm-hmm. If this feels like a dig, or if this feels uncomfortable for you, you may even be thinking, okay, well, what are they talking about? Why do I feel uncomfortable now? Maybe there have been some doubts that you're open to rethink your way of parenting. I also want to say that the work we do with parents, it's not us just barking orders at your kids. That's not at all what this is. The work that we do with parents is teaching you different methods and tools to be able to implement this in your home, or that you build that strong emotional connection with your child. or that you are not just a disciplinarian or an authoritarian figure, and neither are we when we meet with your kiddo. That's not the goal here. We're helping the entire family unit. And by teaching you guys, the parents, our methods and our tools that have proven to work, you then take that into your own, and you can kind of mold that into your own and figure out what works best in your situation, what works best with your kids. But it also, instead of further disconnecting the bond that so many parents are afraid they'll sever if they come in and they pull that iPad, or if they ground their kid from seeing friends for a day, the things that you will work on with your kids will help strengthen that and build a closer, tighter family unit. And that's the important thing here, is the work that you put in now will continue to build strong familial relationships throughout the rest of your lives together.
Now, I think that it's important to express to you, I would say, the general sense of the type of kiddos that we work with. And I will probably give you some examples. We've had a client who was a solo parent and said their child would not get down from the roof in order to go to school. We have had a client who has felt like they're walking on eggshells around their child. We have had clients who have felt like they are disruptive at school, are disruptive at home. They basically kind of control the outcome of how things and how the energy is within the house. They are brilliant, brilliant, brilliant children. They are children who could be classified as ADHD, despite us not really loving labels or diagnosis. We're also seeing individuals who are extremely impulsive, which means they really can't control some of the things they are doing. We are also seeing behavioral kiddos who absolutely, and defiant, who can absolutely control these behaviors and what they are doing, but they know that they can get away with it. And we have seen a client or spoken with a client who has gone so far as this kiddo is a teenager, will not get out of bed to go to school. And the parent's like, I don't really know what to do. Like, how do I get my kid to go to school? And this kiddo will only go when the child feels like going. And I tell you that story about the teenager because that is what it ends up morphing into. That is what it ends up.
It's what it becomes. I mean, if you don't get it
producing,
under control,
yes.
We're not, I don't use the word control as we are going to
control
help
the
you
child.
Control your child.
Right.
That's not what getting it under control in my definition means, but you have to reel it in. You have to get those behaviors to a manageable point. You have to teach your children healthy ways to deal with whatever stress, emotional issues they may be having that, for instance, in that last example you gave, would keep them from going to school. But as a parent, you also have to be strong enough to put your foot down. In my opinion, there's no reason a teenager would be allowed to stay home. That does fall back to parenting of, you got to get this kiddo up and get this individual to school. You got to do it. But it does take you willing to make a commitment and put the work in to get to where you're strong enough, if you're not already there, to put your foot down, like I said, and take action.
And I believe that the younger you take action, the better it is for the child and parent relationship. And we've seen many different kids at many different ages. And I've given you just examples of some of the kiddos we've seen. But what's happening when the child is functioning in that way is usually their brain is going super fast. They're more of a gas pedal, especially the impulsive ones. And so they're going so fast and they're so brilliant that they're being able to calculate the situation and know what they can and cannot get away with, or how they can tantrum until you're like, fine, I just can't listen to it, and give in. Or you're so exhausted because you're working so hard and you've got a job that's very demanding and you're just exhausted from trying to make it and live life. And then you come home and you've got this child who is exhausting. And so you're like, I can't today. I just can't. But what ends up happening is that snowballs into not just the child who becomes their most authentic self. It snowballs into the child who believes and can get away with the fact that I can just lay in bed and my parents aren't going to do anything and I'm cool not going to school, right? As an example, right? There's many different examples, but that's just the one I threw out there.
I'd say it creates a manipulative, entitled child. And maybe not so much entitled in a privileged way, but entitled in they know they can get away with whatever they want. They can control the home, they can control the outcome, and they will do that through calculations or manipulations
because they're that smart.
Yeah, this worked last time. I'm going to push it and see if it works today. And if it works today, I know it's going to work for however long until mom and dad decide to do something about it.
Yeah. I believe that when a child is not nurtured in the way that they need, two things happen. Number one is the family is exhausted and miserable. When we start working with clients, especially a family unit, what we want to see from the parent side of things is, oh my gosh, I have peace in my home. That's what we want for you. And that is the goal for you. If you are waking up every day and you are exhausted from your child and it's not getting better, or you don't know what to do and you're craving peace within the home, that is possible and that is absolutely doable. I think on the flip side of it, for the child, when they are the one that is very impulsive, running around, going from task to task to task, very calculating or manipulating in a really smart way, not a mean or like, they're not intentionally trying to manipulate you. They're just that smart. What ends up happening is their skill level for where they should be developmentally, whether it's socially, academically, or just understanding certain skills that they should have learned at XYZ age is very much behind. And when they don't have that sense of safety within the home of knowing what's expected, their anxiety can be so much higher than necessary. And so they will continue to try to control the situation to decrease their own anxiety as a 10-year-old, as a 13-year-old, as a 16-year-old. And their behaviors will continue because that's what feels good for them, because you haven't pushed them outside of their comfort zone to be able to feel the discomfort of things not going their way and having someone in the lead. And these are skills that they need to learn for their future. The same way that if they didn't turn their homework in, they'd get an F, or if they didn't complete a project, they may get fired. It is okay to decide how you want your home to look and how you want your parenting style to look. And it is okay to enforce that or move forward with how you want your family life to look. So let's talk about the outcome for these children of what it looks like when they do finally have structure and nurture in their homes. What we have seen is happier children. What we have seen is more peaceful homes, more connected homes, more regulated children, more regulated parents. And the overall sense that we have seen and heard is, I'm happier now than I was before. And that's maybe something that you may not expect, given that it is stepping into more boundaries and more structure and really educating the child on things that are okay and not okay in the home. What do you think happens when two parents are on completely different pages?
It doesn't work. You won't get anywhere. You got to be on board. I mean, both of you have to be on board. If you have one parent doing the work and the other parent just kind of sitting back, you got this, props to you for wanting to do it. I don't want to do any of that. It doesn't work, because eventually what happens is the parent that's doing the work is then isolated as the disciplinarian. Mm-hmm. It creates that divide. It furthers a divide or a thought process in the child's brain of mom's the bad guy, dad's cool because he doesn't care what I want to do, or vice versa. So in order for it to work, both parents have to be on board. Now, if you're in a single solo parenting situation, of course, you're an exception there. You are both. You're everything.
Disciplinarian
So, yeah.
and emotional.
And the nurture, and you're building the structure. You're just doing all these things. So that's kind of a unique situation, but also not the worst situation to be in, because you don't have to butt heads with somebody that may not be on board with what you're wanting to do.
I think it's not just that you both have to be on board and that it doesn't work, but I think that what we see a lot of is, I would say one is more of a disciplinarian, and then the other one is more of the nurturer. But I find that the nurturer is unhappy with the way that the disciplinarian is choosing to either go about the disciplinary stuff or choosing to go about setting boundaries. And it makes the one who is more of the nurturer very uncomfortable. And that causes a huge divide in the dynamic and relationship of your partnership.
For me, I think that's exactly why you both have to be on board for it to work. Mm-hmm. Because you will have to find the balance within one another and be okay if there is that big of a divide, for someone to take that role and just trust that, they have everyone's best interest in mind, whether it be in the disciplinary role or whether it be in the nurturing role.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is extremely important to be on the same page. It's, that kids will try to get away with anything. So it's, hey mom, can I have a Sprite? We're going to pass tonight. Hey dad, can I have a Sprite? I don't know.
What would your mom say?
Yeah, what'd your mom say, right? It's little things like that really make a difference in knowing, because once your child understands that you're both on the same page and you're going to function as a team, they no longer have time for a lot of that BS, because they know no matter which parent they're with, the parent is going to hold them accountable the same exact way, no matter which parent is with them. And I would say that is one of the most crucial things to finally supporting a child who is struggling or really causing chaos in the home. I would say what we want to hear is, I asked a client the other day, I said, how do you feel this week? And they said, I feel liberated. And I shot my arms up in the air and I was like, that's exactly what you want to feel. Like, they had smiles on their faces and they felt like they had the tools to support their child. And this is a child who really did first start out from more of the nurture heavy, gentle parenting, conscious parenting arena. If someone was asking us, because people always ask these types of questions, but if someone was asking us, what is your top 3 biggest suggestions of places to start? Because I think individuals are like, what's the thing? What's the thing that's going to help?
Hop on call and let's talk about it. That's my answer. I jokingly say that. The reality, I think, is that every family dynamic, every individual, every child is completely different. While we have methods that will work for pretty much anyone that walks this planet, the delivery, the implementation, that always looks different. It's really never the same twice, because of situation, circumstance, or just the overall emotional makeup of the tiny human that we're trying to help here. So that's a tough one. For me, I don't personally throw out anything, because I'd rather have an actual conversation with the family, see what's going on, get my thoughts on it, assess it, and then kind of give my opinion of where it sounds like they are, and then set forth kind of a little brief plan going forward if they wanted to get on board and work.
Yeah, it's absolutely individualized. I would say if someone asked me that for the top 3, like where to start, I would say it's the recognition that there's discomfort and chaos in the home. Like, recognize, be aware of it, and kind of accept it, and accept that this is potentially not the way that you want to live. I would say that's number 1, is making that choice of like, wow, this is a really big struggle and I'm exhausted and I don't want it to be like this any longer. I would say the second step is having open communication with your partner, if you have one, and deciding that you want to do something about it to support your child as a team. And then I would say number 3 is figure out what that plan looks like and be committed to the plan and maintain consistency. That's what I would say. And if you can't figure out a plan, or if you don't know where to start, or if you're honestly just miserable, like if you're ready to feel liberated, that's where the plan comes in, and that's also where we can help. We know that we have really strong opinions when it comes to parenting and how things are currently going for kids in terms of parenting. I would say some might take the conversation as harsh or like there's a finger being pointed at you. But I think if no one discusses it, if no one has the hard conversation, then nothing's going to change. And it's a not popular opinion at the moment, because right now it's gentle and conscious parenting and scripted parenting and love and cuddles and nurture only.
Until you just can't take it anymore.
Until it's out of control, and meaning out of control is you just can't take it anymore.
I would go a step further and say if, any of this is uncomfortable for you, it's kind of might be a sign for you to consider a different approach. Usually that's where something's making someone uncomfortable, insecure, or this comes across in a certain light. Maybe that's it. Take a look, see if you feel that what method or your approach is really working, or you're like, wow, that describes me to a T. I need to make a change.
Mm-hmm. And there's back and forth discussions. I've absolutely had clients in the past who are like, well, okay, wait, like I need you to talk me through that again, because I'm not sure that's going to work for us, and kind of question. And I think it's because we have all bought in and believed so heavily that gentle and conscious parenting is what is going to decrease trauma and generational trauma. But I do believe that some of these children are not being given the structure that they so desire, but don't know how to ask for, because they themselves may not even recognize.
Yeah. A lot of our clients, as the work progresses, their children actually, the behavior issues kind of just work themselves out as more structure is implemented. It's really cool to look at it like that and watch. But they do. You find that your child is actually craving structure because this, Lord of the Flies style of just letting them all go is really further dysregulating them. Mm-hmm. And that structure helps regulate them not only emotionally, but more importantly, neurologically. That nervous system comes into play with the addition of structure. So it really becomes a win-win and a benefit for the entire family.
Yeah, and when that nervous system is dysregulated, just like we said, we work with a lot of adults who have lots of patterns, generational patterns. If that nervous system is not regulated, then the child will continue to pattern that dysregulation and maintain that and live there as an adult and function there as an adult.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So we hope that this has been thought-provoking for you. We also did want to let you know that this is something we offer, and it is a fairly new offer because we have seen such a need. And while my journey is I stepped away from pediatrics to really help pediatrics by working with adults, I think that really adding in the child has been pretty awesome. So until next time.
I never can remember it. I'm going to let you do it.
XOXO, Dr. V.